They trained us to be employees. Study hard, get the job, stay loyal, don't ask too many questions. And we did all of it. And then they handed the job over to automation or an AI tool that works 24 hours, 7 days a week, never calls in sick, and doesn't need benefits. Nobody's coming to save you, but nobody told you that either.
Well, I know for myself, I had worked for a major company and I literally would get dry heaves and throw up before I had to go to work because I hated the culture. I hated the environment so much. But at that time, I had two little girls I was raising, but I still had to pull my weight.
450 a week, that's 900 every 2 weeks, that's 1,800 a month. You get 1,800 a month in California to cover your bills. Now, mind you, you got a mortgage, you got car payments, you got car insurance, you got house insurance, you got kids, you got groceries, you got PG&E, water, garbage, right?
Yeah.
And all you bring in is 1,800 a month. We're back with another one. The title of this episode, we were trained to be employees, and then they took the jobs away. That was a loaded one. So let's get into it.
So, as we were discussing and thinking about this particular topic, one of the things that how it really even starts off with, at one point, there was a lot of people that were more loyal to their companies and everything. And here it is, 2026. So we're just trying to survive the layoffs that are happening and just the pivoting that's still happening. And a lot of us are a lot older since we used to pivot and have loyalty issues and everything. And one of the things we were talking about as well is the generation after us versus before us. The dynamic is really different as far as loyalty. My parents' generation, you stayed at a job long enough, you were literally loyal to them. They showed their loyalty to you. Besides paying you, everybody would talk about that gold watch. You
Right.
stayed for that. Then you have the generation after us. What would that be? Gen X, Z, or
That's the millennials.
okay. With the millennials, if they don't like it, they're out of here. They'll figure it out later on. Whereas we were caught somewhere in between. So
Right.
that is the crux of what we were talking about, which spiraled into so many other things. I mean, you've got within that whole loyalty trap, you're dedicating yourself to the job. You probably can't stand the job. You've got ulcers behind the job, where most people would have said just fuck it and quit. But you've got all those financial ties to you. So then you've got what is called, we were talking about, what is it, during the pandemic and even after, when everybody was able to work remotely. And it was like, oh, great, this is what I needed. I can't stand the job. But the consolation is I can work from home. Then after the change happened, you're like, okay, what's going on? What's going to happen? Then you get that RTO, return to office mandates.
Right.
So then that's where you had your voluntary resignations that went. A lot of people moved out of the area so they can still work remotely. That was no longer a viable thing for them to do. Then you also had your micro layoffs. They would avoid the mass layoffs. It wouldn't make the news as much as it had been. Hey, we're going to restructure some things. We're going to do this instead of that. Then you might, instead of having a whole department, you might have a certain unit within that department. Then you have jobs there. So that kind of throws you out of loops. And when you're older, what are you going to do? Like you said in the title, you went to school, you learned whether it be a trade or you learned an occupation, that was phasing out. The
Right.
robot was going to start doing your job, or you've aged out. So there's so many different things that were doing that.
No, this is good. This is good. Because I also wanted to go back to where you said when we worked these jobs for 20 some odd years,
Mhm.
and then you would work that job, even if you had an ulcer, even if you hated that job, even if it made you sick to go into that job.
Yeah.
Why do you think we did that though?
Well, I know for myself, I had worked for a major company and I literally would get dry heaves and throw up before I had to go to work because I hated the culture. I hated the environment so much. But at that time, I had two little girls I was raising, but I still had to pull my weight. They still needed my income. And what also happens is when you get paid very well, then what are you going to do?
Right.
I had a mortgage, I had kids in private school, I had to commute into work and all this kind of stuff. So you just put it on the back burner and say, suck it up and keep moving forward because The generation before us, that's what they did. You just did it.
I would agree with that, but then I'm gonna push back a little bit. I'm gonna give a different perspective because, like you said, you had all these things that you had the mortgage, you had children, you had developed this lifestyle. So that's why you really couldn't afford to leave that job. I'm coming from the perspective, kind of like what you were just saying, our predecessors, our grandparents, our parents.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give my grandfather as an example. He said, all you need is one job. All you need is one good job. And you work there and you work for that job until you retire. You don't
Correct.
need multiple jobs. You need one good job. This is what my grandfather taught. When you have people, especially us, you were taught to what? Listen to your elders, respect your elders, get that knowledge, that wisdom.
Correct.
So when you're taught to not question, what they're telling you is rule, or like they say, that's Bible. It's Bible. When you have a generation that was taught never to question, so that's what they knew to do because that worked for them, but the tide was turning.
Yes,
When
it
my
was.
mom got into corporate America, that's when they started the reorgs and the layoff and the downsizing and all of that.
Gonna restructure.
We're going to restructure. What
Yeah.
they call it? They call it a RIF.
Okay.
Yeah, they call them RIFs.
I was gone by that time.
When you were taught to just stay, and then a company institutes a new form of saving them and their shareholders money, and you were never taught to pivot, that
Nope.
causes problems. And when that next generation learns the same thing, it causes issues, in my opinion. The baby boomers to
Correct.
Generation X to Generation Z, this is where I feel that what you were just talking about, the layoffs, how it's impacting us in different ways because of the way we were taught, the way we think about things,
Yeah.
the way we thought about how things are supposed to work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even before I even got to college age, even I guess when my grandmother was in college, you go to college for 4 years, you either get a husband or you're gonna get a job.
And
One of the 2 things. 4
that's
years.
yep.
That's it.
I know women, you were taught, women back for your grandmother's age, they were like, you go to college to get a husband, not to
Yeah.
get a career.
Yep.
It didn't, I don't think that switch came until what, the 50s, 60s, where you actually went and women were starting to look at, you go to college to get a career, not necessarily get a
Correct.
husband. With the layoffs in, was it 2021, 2022, where there were people resigning silently, like you said.
Mhm.
Then during COVID, there were a lot of people who, it was called the Great Resignation. And in HR, that's what they called it, the Great
Okay.
Resignation. People were, when COVID hit, people were re-evaluating how they looked at work, looked at, going to work and spending 10 and 12 hours at work and not necessarily taking care of family or being around family, but you were missing out on family events, being close to your children, your significant other, all that. Even at where I worked, it was a lot of people just quitting that had 25 years, 30 years of knowledge. And they were making good money. We're talking about these higher ups. They were like, you know what? I'm over it. I got enough to where I can retire comfortably. I'm going to resign. We're going to move to Idaho or Colorado or something like that. Me and the family. And I'm going to spend time with my family because lives were
Leaving
being,
this world.
thank you. They were
Yeah.
leaving the world and people were having these epiphanies. Well,
Right.
shoot, I've been working hard and then this thing can come and take my life. And I'm thinking I'm setting up retirement, but I may not even be here.
Right.
So that's what they were calling the Great Resignation. But within that Great Resignation, there was a gap that formed as well because you were losing the knowledge base from these people because they were just up and quitting. So there was a lot that went on in 2020. When we talk about 2020 till now, there's so much of a great shift that
To look
place.
back.
You
It's
look
easier
back.
to see the future in terms of when you look back in order to see forward, if that makes
Right. It's like so much took place. You had people lose jobs. You had people who are not here anymore because of the pandemic. Then we went from a culture of got to come into the office. You can't work from home till pack your laptop, your
Yeah.
mouse, your keyboard, you going home to work from home. And then all of a sudden, when the jab instituted, you got to come back. We got to create that community again where you're in the office. And a lot of folks were like, mm
Well, and a lot of that too stemmed from, and like again, as we were talking, the other businesses that were around those office buildings and stuff. So you had the cafes, you had all those
correct.
lunch spots. Cause I mean, I worked in downtown Oakland for years.
hmm
So when I got out of the train station, I'm passing all kinds of stuff. you know, and then
Absolutely.
when the buildings closed down, they closed down because that's where
Right.
the bulk of their money was. Because if you go to most downtowns on the weekend, everything was pretty
It's
much shut
dead.
down. Yeah,
Right. It's only a Monday through Friday gig.
yeah,
Right. You are so true because when you look at San Francisco too, when you look at Market Street, look
yep,
at the financial district, all those big buildings, but in between, there's all these places to eat. Then after 5, you go to the bars, little
know
night,
anything about the after 5.
She's like, I don't know anything about the
So I'm
after
gonna
5.
have to take notes on what you say, but
Well,
okay.
I indulged in the after 5s, back in the day. So yeah, it was more so, on Friday, you had happy hour
Right,
and you
right.
went somewhere. And you just either you met up with friends or your coworkers and you guys had some drinks before you got back on the BART to come home.
Got on the train to go home. Yep,
Right.
I
On the
know.
Friday nights. So when that closed down, all that stuff, it impacted those businesses.
It was
So a lot of
domino.
them didn't make it. So
Right.
it's like it's an ecosystem and that ecosystem started to decimate.
Oh, for sure, and then you know how the restaurants had to pivot as well, so those that did serve food, I remember you'd have, like, those little lines of cars, and then
Yep.
you put your order in, and they'd make the food, and then they give you the food, so everybody would you probably had to do a lot of ingenious kinda
Yes.
things, ingenuity, you gotta pivot,
Yes.
you had to think outside the box, which is still going on today because as you know, if people still needed to generate some form of income,
Right.
so with that, you might have had, like, a side hustle or something that you had to, "Hey, can I make more than just a side hustle kinda money with it?
Mhm.
Or is this gonna be an actual business that I might try to."
That's our next segue. We're talking about the innovativeness of it all. The people who pivoted to help to maintain their business and survive it, right? What they did, and then the people who experienced being laid off or
Mhm.
not having a job to come back to. That created a whole new ecosystem. And so we're going to talk about, are we in an entrepreneurial boom or are we in an underemployment crisis? Is this empowerment or disguised unemployment? Now we're going to get into the weeds, a little bit of numbers because I had to do some numbers
Oh,
research. The data points: 5.5 million new business applications in 2023, according to the Census Bureau. Highest on record.
mhm.
60% of those have 0 employees, the solopreneur, right? Many never generate revenue.
Hmm.
The median solo entrepreneur's revenue is between 46,000 to 50,000 before expenses. After expenses, many net under 30K. When you look at it, only 10 to 15% of the side hustles ever replace full-time income. Gig workforce jumped between 36% of US workers post 2020, post the pandemic. Many don't choose it, but layoffs push them to it. Many of them, and that's what we need to talk about. It's not that people chose that life, right? A lot of them may have wanted to stay at their jobs, but those jobs weren't available anymore for whatever reason.
Mhm.
But they've been forced into it. And so being forced to be an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, as you call it, it sounds very exciting. It sounds very glamorous. I'm out here making big moves, boss moves.
I'm doing
You
my own
I'm
thing.
my
Yeah,
own
yeah,
thing. But when you look at the numbers, it's showing that you're working to survive, not necessarily thrive. And that's the issue. When you talk about people doing gig work, and what I mean by gig work, if you don't know, it could be DoorDash, Uber Eats, Amazon Flex Work, Instacart. These are all familiar to you.
Mm.
Ubering, Lyft, these are all gig economy work, delivery service, basically. And there's different ways, different forms or facets. I didn't name them all. But when you look at it, when you start doing it, it may seem as though this is, I'm free. Finally, I don't report to anybody. I'm my own boss, right?
Yep.
Until, you know, it it doesn't really match the money that you're bringing in doesn't really match your current existing bills.
Obligations.
Thank you. Obligations. Exactly. So that the barrier to entry is crazy right now. And then you look at people make it exciting also when you look at content creation. So I can say gig work, solopreneur, content creation, creating your own business, whatever it may be. It looks exciting and it sounds exciting, and people on the internet make it seem exciting or like, oh, you can do this for 6 months to a year, and then you just got to be consistent. You got to change your mindset. You got to grind. You got to grind, and then it's going to happen for you. Or they offer this lifestyle that you're looking at. Look at me. I have all these packages. I created this business and look at all these orders I got and I'm fulfilling them and I'm going to UPS. And it sounds glamorous until you get into it. And your income is like you're spending more out than you're receiving in.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like with any business when it starts. I think people forget that because just like you said, you're hearing, this influencer or this person or this commercial, hey, this is what it is. You can do this. But no, you got to get started. And
Right.
as we know, it's like execution is 99% of what you're doing. That old adage about I'll build it and they will come. Well,
Right.
or it's a great product and it'll sell itself. Not necessarily true. I mean, there's always those outliers out there. There are things that can happen, but distribution is important, marketing and a sales funnel. For those of you who don't know what that is, if you're in the business, you'll know what that is. But I mean, there's processes that go, and then you do that one particular item, and then you're going, oh, it's going to go viral and blow up. Which I thought, here it is, 7 years later. But it's a slow and steady thing. What I've learned is, do you want something to catch like wildfire and just go viral? And for me, looking back on what I know now, I would say no. Only because you miss the learning involved. And the people that are in the weeds right now may say, that's bullshit. I want a viral and I want it to go now. But how I talk with vendors now, as opposed to what I did last year or even 5 years ago, is totally different than what it is now. You learn that hiring people to do a particular job and they suck at it, and then you gotta let them go. But then you're in a contract, so you still gotta pay the people that you can't stand for right now, maybe 90 more days in the contract once you guys decide to sever ties. They still haven't done shit, but they still getting paid. It's those kind of things that you learn. Now, had something gone viral the first time, I would not have known all of that. So again, to our point, when I'm saying you gotta look back in order to look forward. So a constant growth is what helps, but you have to stay vigilant. And it's not for everybody. But again, like you said, some folks were forced into it and they don't have a choice.
And that's the thing. When you're forced into something, some people know how to adapt and have that learning curve, and some people don't. Some people get trapped in this serial gig work because at the end of the day, gig work and entrepreneurship is different. Gig work, you're beholden to someone because that app is providing you your work. That app is providing you the people that press, hey, I want something delivered to me. If you don't have that app, you don't have that accessibility.
Right.
It's gig work because you're not necessarily getting, well, in California, it's a little bit different. California still offers for contractors to 99 people, you can pay for benefits or they take out for your benefits, right? So in some of these cases, you are getting some benefits depending on what state you live in. But most of the time, you're not getting benefits. You don't have PTO anymore. Being able to take a vacation is slim to none, especially if you can't make your bills. How you gonna take a vacation? Right? You're constantly working. So you gave up one employer for another.
Well, I mean, you give up one employer for many, because again, your customers, those are your bosses, because they're the ones that are, how did I do? 1 star or 5.
You can still get terminated or kicked off an app if someone complains.
Even if you're selling your items on these marketplaces, for example, Amazon, you're selling your own products. And if you are shipping out your own products and you're not shipping it out on time, you get graded in a sense. You get rated on how quickly you get stuff out to your customers. I know the stuff that I order on Amazon, then I'll get an email, rate this particular product. What is the good and bad on that product? So your customers are your bosses. So you're late too many times on getting product out, or you give a lot of returns on your product, because I remember it was like something really minute, like some house slippers. I'm looking through the reviews and it has in like this different color letting you know, hey, these have been returned a few times.
It tells you that?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the review on, that's true. Because Amazon now, when you go on, you are so correct. Thank you very much.
So
it will tell you.
a lot of
you have a lot of bosses. Exactly. It'll tell you. So when you look at that, what Casey just said, you're up against, you're not necessarily the entrepreneur that you're aspiring to be, and the gig workers who were forced into it, you are forced into a situation or a marketplace that you're unfamiliar with, and now you have to learn and navigate. So it's not easy right now. It's a little bit different. We're definitely, I would say we're in a transition. When you say it's almost like different booms or different eras, that we as the United States have gone through. I think the last one we were in, there was the industrial, then it was the .com. Now we're
Oh,
like, you know,
yeah.
it's trade-offs, and people, there are going to be some people that are left behind, and then there's going to be some people who can function within it, and then there's going to be some people who thrive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we're just kind
A
of
great
talking about
area
it.
for sure. Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Right. So it's just a lot to take on. It's just a lot to process, especially when you hear all the noise right now. You hear all the noise on the news. There's a lot of people on social media who,
Right,
you know,
right.
they have their opinions about what's happening and if it's being unfair, or you're always going to have people who are not happy with change. But change consistently comes. And a lot of times it's a pain point for folks who weren't prepared, or folks who they may be at an age or a time in their life where they thought they could wind down, and now it doesn't look like that's going to happen. You understand what I'm saying? So
Right, right. Because even with I don't know, it wasn't necessarily with the pandemic, but the Madoff scam.
Mhm,
There
mhm,
was a lot of people that were just either they were already retired, living off the interest, or getting
mhm,
ready to retire. They
mhm.
went, they invested, and now they are doing stuff that they would never have expected to do because
Right,
of that one decision. And at 70 plus years old, they had to actually go back to work. And it's like, nothing wrong with being a greeter, but if I'm expected to sit on my back porch and watch grass grow, that's not what I wanted to do as far
right.
as having to get out and get another job because I've already done my time and did everything.
They did
Right.
everything they were supposed to do, and they trusted someone,
There we go.
and
The
that person,
loyalty factor.
the loyalty factor, and then here they are. Now they are in a situation of fight or flight.
Correct.
You would say that's rare, but it's becoming more common these days. With so much technology, it's easy for people to get scammed or be a part of a scam.
Mhm.
It's so much happening, and we're not doing this. I hope you guys don't take this as a doom and gloom episode, because it's really not. But we are really talking about just how things have become so different for this era. It's
Changes.
always been change. Change is going to happen. It's happened for generations, and this just happens to be our generation where we're experiencing change.
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
right.
I
It's not like it's different. It's the same thing packaged a different way.
Oh, yeah, and it's so funny because now I'm older, so now I'm caught in between that. Luckily,
Right.
when I left my job, I hated it, so I just basically quit. I don't recommend people doing that, but I did it, and then about a year later, I started my business that's still in the starting stage, but now I'm seeing growth. If you were to tell me, "Hey, quit your job and start a business," I'd be like, "You're out of your fucking mind." But it was one of those opportunities where I was able to do that. But yeah, we are definitely seeing the change.
You are definitely seeing a change.
And a lot of the people that I know that are my age or give or take an age above or below, they're straddling that fine line because some of them are ready to retire, but do they have enough to retire? Because
Right.
again, like what you said, we went to school, we went and got the white collar job, and maybe we put the minimum into our 401k. So now they're looking like, oh, I got to have X amount of dollars in order to really retire. So now they're either pulling up a side gig on top of what they've got. So now there's anxiety that goes
Right.
with that. And
Right.
it's like, oh my God.
Right.
And postponing retirement because of it.
And some of us don't have a choice to postpone retirement.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
And that's where we get into, we're still on this gig thing. So, is gig work a smart bridge, or is it a long-term trap? I view it kind of like a long-term trap, but I'm going to talk about it in this segment. When we're looking at it, at what point does temporary become permanent survival mode? That's the thing we're going to look at. So, here I go. So, at least 63 to 72% of entrepreneurs report burnout. Let me repeat that.
Yeah, I
63 to
can
2%,
that would be me.
yeah, report burnout, right? Solopreneurs hit hardest because there's no team. I'm a team of one. Solopreneurs wear every hat:
Yep.
marketing, sales, fulfillment, accounting, customer service. 50% of small businesses fail within 5 years. Solo service businesses skew worse. Gig workers experience 2 to 3 more times income volatility than W-2 workers, and that hits different. Yeah, 30% of gig workers can't cover an unexpected $400 expense. Hits different. Entrepreneurship didn't fix it. So, like I said, there's no sick time. Some of us don't have health insurance, depends on the state you live in,
Mhm.
and no unemployment, because let's just be real. when you were laid off, reorg, whatever you want to call it, California, I don't know about any other states. I can only speak to California. You get 6 months of unemployment. There is no extension, especially after COVID. Max you can take out in California is $450 a week. That's the max. I'm speaking from the max benefit. 450 a week. That's 900 every 2 weeks. That's 1800 a month. You get 1800 a month in California to cover your bills. Now, mind you, you got a mortgage, you got car payments, you got car insurance, you got house insurance, you got kids, you got groceries, you got PG&E, water, garbage, right?
Yeah.
And all you bring in is 1800 a month. If you're married, you have a little bit of reprieve, depending on what your significant other makes. If you are single with kids or single and your bills exceed that, that puts you in a what am I gonna do mode. Ends gotta meet. So you try to do gig work, right? To bridge it, to help. Because 6 months, that's going away. And then you're trying to look for a job or build a business. That's a lot to put on someone. When I say, is gig work a smart bridge or is it a long-term trap? It can be a smart bridge when you're first starting out. But say, for instance, your goal is to get back into employment, W-2 work or contracting, and you can't find work, but you're looking, you're applying. Nothing's coming through. That's when I think it turns into a long-term trap for you. That's the long-term trap. And it's not that you intentionally meant it to be, but things aren't working for you. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, what they told you to do,
Correct.
but it's not working. But the bills keep coming.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
they're going to keep coming. Trust me.
Yeah. The bills keep coming. The burnout is coming for people because they may not be able to find work. They're doing any and everything they can to make ends meet. That could be a couple of gig jobs. That could be, an entrepreneurial venture, trying to create something. Well, that's not going to take off. You're not going to become an instant millionaire off of your idea. That happens once in a million, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to create something. You're trying to maybe create cupcakes. I see all kinds of stuff, creating cakes, selling plates out your house.
Now, that's a lot. That's becoming popular. Now,
Yes.
my daughter was showing me on YouTube. I don't know the name of it, but there's this guy. He goes all over. So he's in California and I think he has gone to Texas and some other places. And he goes to somebody's house and he wants you to say, okay, I want you to come to my house because of A, B, and C. And he goes and tries your food and he critiques it and everything.
See?
And I'm like, wow, okay. So now people are getting, I guess it's licensed so they can cook out of their homes now. That's another thing. So you
Yeah.
pull up because I remember church, sister so and so, it's like $5 a plate. She's selling them. Now I can literally go to your house. You would
Yeah.
already have picked it for me, and you walk it out to the front door.
That's the thing actually here in the Bay Area. I think we talked about it. They allow in certain counties for you to do that, to go to the county and apply to where you can cook food out of your house. You can get a dining experience out of your house.
Oh
You get
yeah, yeah.
you can use your house as like a restaurant, or you
Yep.
can prepare food for people to come and pick up or deliver.
There's this one. Sorry, it just
No, no, no.
came out in LA. It's like a coffee house.
Mhm.
It showed the guy, and again, I don't have the IG address, but he walks up the driveway, the backyard opens up, and it's all these chairs and stuff, and there's the baristas over there, and it's coffee.
Yep. It's very creative ways to, try to make ends meet. But at the
Yeah,
end of the day, sometimes it's only going to be an ends meet thing for some, and some are going to be successful at it. So
right.
it's just the realization of what the one or two ways this is going to go. Is it going to be a long-term trap, or is it something that you can capitalize on and you can
Yeah.
float it into a business? It can go one or two ways.
Yeah, one of the things that I had to realize or make a decision on, again, similar to what you're saying, do I want it as a hobby
Mhm.
or is this gonna be an actual business? So, solopreneur, and we were talking about the differences when you're saying you do everything.
Mhm.
It's like that little circus monkey that's got the cymbals and he's got the harmonica and he's doing everything. When I first started, that's what I was doing. I was doing everything. But you cannot progress further than what your knowledge will let you. At some point, and I know money is a factor, but at some point, you have to bring somebody on or something on that
Mhm.
is greater than you as far as a knowledge base to help
Right.
scale up your business. that's going to come when it's time. You'll know when it's time. But I knew I couldn't reach the amount of people that I'm reaching now. So I had to bring on a team of people to do that. And that in itself is scary. That's money sometimes you don't have, that you have to find it. But it's like,
Right.
okay, if I don't find it, I'm going to stay stagnant, where again, where that trap comes into play. Or I can break through that and go from there. But yeah, that is definitely the difference for being trapped or scaling up your business to make it an actual business and not a hobby.
We can look at it. I got to go down this avenue, this rabbit hole, because we're talking
Uh-oh.
about gig work and solopreneurs. There's also that exists in content creation. So,
True.
yeah, yeah, it's a, is this a trap or, it's not necessarily what you call gig work, but it can be a trap, meaning you are your own employer, so to speak. And yes, there are ways you can make money on TikTok, IG, Facebook, YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
There are monetization thresholds. And when you look at YouTube, there's 2 tiers. The first tier is you have to meet 500 subscribers, 3,000 public watch hours. That's your first tier into getting acceptance or being able to qualify to get into the YouTube partner program. And then there's the second threshold after you meet that first one is 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 public watch hours. And a lot of people are, when you say you get monetized, it's like, "Ooh, I made it. I made
That's what
it,"
I
right?
thought. That's what I thought,
Right.
really.
Here comes the tens of thousands of
Yep.
dollars, and that's what you think. But in actuality, the average content creator is averaging that could be $2 to $7. So you're looking at, you may get like $100, $50 a month that YouTube partner program will pay you. And they're taking 30%. So you get 70% of that. So if you're only getting on your channel anywhere from 50 to maybe $200 a month, that's income, but that's not I made it income, right? That ain't I made it. So it is still you still have to know where to take it, right? In order to get to that
Correct.
possibility of getting more money coming in. And that goes by how many YouTube ads, what type of YouTube ads or Google ads can be placed on your channel, on your videos, your short and long form videos. So there's a lot that plays into it. When do you know when to scale? Because if you don't know how to scale and you're doing like $100, $200 a month, that's like your phone bill money, right? So you covering the cell phone bill, right? But you can get caught into that trap and people will look at you like, "Oh, they monetize. They doing their thing." But it's on the back end, it's not necessarily that sometimes. And a lot of people like to glamorize the monetization as being, "Oh, I'm doing my thing." And you are. You're doing it, but you may be doing it at a smaller scale. And it's more so, how do you scale that business?
Mm-hmm.
How do you, once you get monetized, where do you go from there to scale it? And so you have to look at it. Are you looking at this as a business, or is it just to get monetized to make the money that you're making?
Right.
Where do you take it? And a lot of us, again, we're forced into these situations to try to figure these things out. Some are going to be successful at it, some are not. I look at all of this as it's a learning curve. It's not necessarily failure, even though it may feel like it. You may want to, like Casey says, she has her moments where she curls up into a ball and watches her stuff.
You just telling all my business.
And then I have the moments where I need to touch grass. I need to go outside and look at the sky, because some days I'm like, this ain't what I bargained for. This ain't what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
This is not how I envisioned all of this.
Well, no, I mean, if you really want to see what you're envisioning, hey, I got this idea, bam, success. I mean,
Right.
straight line. But as you know as well
Right.
as I, it's not going to be a straight line.
Yeah. It's not a straight line.
No.
And that's the part where we're like, you can look at people on the internet, you can look at people and they make it seem like it's so freaking easy. But when you're doing it, you realize a lot of them people out there lying. They ain't telling the truth, right?
They
Because
home
you're out
living
here doing
in
it.
they living in mama's basement. They ain't
Right.
tell you that.
Exactly. They didn't tell you they are, a trust fund baby. They didn't tell you exactly they're living in their mama's garage or the basement and they don't pay no rent. People may listen to this and be like, I know that. We're just simply putting it out there for those who don't know.
Yeah.
All that glitter is not
Not
gold.
gold.
It's not
No.
gold,
But there are exceptions. There are people that are actually
Absolutely.
making a real killing in these areas. There really are, which
But
is
it's
why
really
everybody else.
1%.
Right. It's why other people are trying to mimic that,
Right.
maybe not the same thing, but mimic it nonetheless. So
You are looking for that secret sauce. And that's another thing we wanna speak to as well. Can you teach me what you're doing?
I'm gonna have to kind of deviate just
What's
a little
that?
bit, just a little bit. Now, as far as buying the toolkit, I'm not really into that. But if you are able to get a mentorship or align yourself with somebody, that's different. That's totally different. There's times, even though I don't have that type of designation behind my name necessarily, but if someone is interested and they want to know who's serious and who isn't, if a millionaire is going to take the time to tell you how they're doing stuff, they're not giving you all the trade secrets, but they can
Right,
give you the basis on how to get from point A, maybe to point C. And if you're
right,
showing the initiative at that point, and hey, you might have to pay something, can you mentor me? Then you'll get to know some of the stuff. But I personally have not purchased something where I found all the trade secrets in these 12 CDs and I was able to do it. Playing devil's advocate. What about the older person? Because remember, times have changed. We're learning
true.
how to do this. And it comes down to also ageism as well. So, how do you do that? Because again, you have somebody that's older, and I'll even
Mhm.
say baby boomers, because I think now some of the tail end of the baby boomers are now in their early 60s.
Yeah, yeah,
So, then you have that. And they're still trying to give it the old college try, but trying to
right,
get into the corporate world.
right,
But again, everything about them just screams old.
right.
Everything. I don't know if you're familiar. Well, you would know this, resume filtering, because some people are
Yes,
still under the guise of, oh, I'll just submit my resume and
right.
we'll go from there.
Yeah,
And again, that whole mindset is, I've had all these years, excuse me, of experience. I want to give them all the information of my experience.
mhm.
And from what I'm understanding, it's like, you know, 20 plus years of experience is automatically that circular file called the trash.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
now that is pretty much one of the last acceptable biases, which is age. You still want to be able to play in that arena, whether it be entrepreneur, whether it be influencer, or even in the corporate world. Can't
Mhm.
do much about that to a certain extent. But I know that if you're with a resume and it's 20 plus years, not only are you dating yourself, but now you're putting yourself out of the market for the fact that you're now going to be overqualified, which means, oh, they're going to want more money and they ain't getting it. For those with the pivot, perhaps 10 to 15 years at the most years of experience. And then when you go in, you can just throw up on them about all the other 40 years you might have. How are you going to transition that if the doors keep closing and then you want to pivot still? And you're like, well, fuck it. I got to, build a new widget, or I got to get on YouTube or IG.
Right.
Because I have seen older people get on there and been very successful. I follow. And it's stuff
Mhm.
that I normally would not follow on. There's a few videos of a bunch of older women or seasoned women, and how their mentality is, you know what, fuck it. I'm older now. I don't have to placate to what's going on. I'm gonna dress like this. I love to see how older women, they say, fuck it, this is what I want to wear. I'm gonna wear it. Now it has to match. I
Right.
don't want baseball socks and a ballroom gown. But there are some, because a lot of us, as older as we're getting, they don't look like the older generation of what we grew up seeing. Some have pivoted in their fashion sense. So
Mhm.
you got to deal with the resume. Some have
Mhm.
said, hey, I used to work in the corporate world. This is who I am now. And I'm
Mhm.
like, ooh, I'm following, because that's inspirational. So you got people that
Right.
are doing that stuff now.
That is a way to pivot into social media. You can make your own lane with regards
Yeah.
to, "This is who I am." In the work world, it's a little bit more difficult because,
Womp
like you said,
womp.
there are gatekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
They're built into the systems now. So when you apply for things, it'll ask you certain questions to see how you respond to. They're not asking you for your age, they're not asking you for when you graduated from high school or when you graduated from college, but
Mm-hmm.
they will ask you certain questions about how you do things, how you maneuver, how you work, how you take on certain projects. Tell me about a project, da 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 da, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they gatekeep with their jobs. Because at the end of the day, I understand it, but I don't have to like it just because I understand it, right?
Correct.
When they're looking for people who will not come in and get settled, and go back into their proverbial old ways.
Mhm.
They're looking for people who can innovate. They're looking for people who are adaptive to culture, adaptive to certain practices, and they're looking for people who can make systems or create workflows or come in and implement something. And a lot of times when you get someone that has 20 something plus years of experience, they don't necessarily want to bring something new. They want to bring something from their old job to you that may have worked for them at their old job, but it's not going to work here.
Right.
And then they don't want to listen to nobody because I have all this experience and I know what I'm doing. And that's
Yeah.
what they're gatekeeping. They don't want that mentality.
And I'm guilty of that. I'm
Right.
guilty because my daughters are in their 30s. And of
Mhm.
course, you have supervisors and managers that are in their 30s. And I can't see myself sitting at a review and them telling me what I can do to improve. Not that there isn't improvement that could be done, but you still have pet milk on your breath. And for those that don't understand what that means, you're too young. There lies in my point. This would be helpful for you. And again, it might very well. And I do know of one person I used to work with, and she was younger. She would call me Miss so and so, but she was groomed by her dad, who was in supervisory managerial capacities. So she had a certain way that she moved, and she wasn't condescending. But sometimes these younger ones feel that because you're older, that you don't know shit.
Yes.
And, no. Now you might be able to do it faster than me, but
Right.
no, I know I can do it a lot better than you. So that's why I'm where I'm at, and I'm okay with that.
Right. And that's what a lot of people are up. But if you can exit that, then that's great for you. But a lot of people cannot exit that. A lot of
Right.
people are looking to go back into that. And so
Yeah.
when you're looking to go back into the workforce because you weren't really prepared to be a solopreneur
Absolutely.
and you don't really want to be a gig worker for the long term, then you have to learn how to pivot.
Yeah,
You got to learn how to play the game that is presented. And that
Yeah.
may be you have to take less money. And that's another key because with years of experience, people want more money. But when you come into a culture of, especially if you're working big tech or growth tech, bio, or anything like that, it's all about, and this is an entrepreneurial term, but it's also startup culture, iterate, iterate, iterate.
Yeah.
They are constantly in iteration, meaning
Mhm.
you're going to always have to adapt. You're going to always there's going to be pivots, there's going to be changes. Nothing is a standard operating procedure.
No.
And when you come from standard operating procedures, culture, to where it's, well, this is the way we do it. And this, you can't deviate from that. Well, if
Correct.
you're in big business, you're in growth tech and all that, they have some of those procedures, but most of the time it's iteration. They look for people who can adapt, who can create systems on the fly. They look for people nowadays who understand how to use these AI tools that are out there. If you're in that business. Now, if you are lucky to stay in, what is it, working for county, state, federal, they don't have that. But in a lot of these public companies that are in growth tech or biotech or any type of medical device or pharmaceutical, things like that, newer companies, they want you to know how to pivot and get used to change. And a lot of times you may have to report into someone who is younger than you. And so
That was an
right.
example. And in transparency, the people that I dealt with were older. I was just
Mhm.
saying when I was talking to my daughters, it's like, there's no way I want to report into you. No, no way. No way.
Right. But on average, you are going to.
Well, if
So
I go back into the workforce now, I'm pretty
yeah.
sure. I don't care how high I wear my hair, or it's like, oh girl, you're screaming old. Something gonna come out my mouth that's gonna give my age away.
Right, right. And I'm just gonna give you some numbers just so I can land my
Ah,
plane. I'm
here
gonna
we
land my
go.
plane with the data.
Okay. We circling now. All right.
Okay. Roughly 2 out of 3 workers age 45 plus have experienced or witnessed age discrimination. Identical resumes with older grade dates get significantly fewer callbacks. Same qualifications, different response.
Mhm.
The median age at a major tech company is between 29 to 33 years of age.
Oh, I
That's
just
not
made
an
it.
accident, right? Post-COVID, layoffs hit older workers hardest.
Right.
Reemployment timelines nearly doubled. So 30-year-olds find work in 3 months. A 50-year-old might take them 6 months to a year or longer.
Yeah.
Companies can hire a 28-year-old with AI skills and pay them 85,000 and keep the 52-year-old that makes 140,000 during the same but slower job with older tools. The math is ugly, but it's real.